David, welcome so much to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you.
Hi, Brittany. I know it's a long time in the making. I'm super happy to be here.
It's super long. I know. Those of you who listen to my podcast know I invite people to my podcast, and then a year later I get them on. So that's kind of what happened here.
It's all right. Planes, trains, automobiles, time zones, there's a lot of schedules at work and we always figure it out.
Yeah, it is really early for where you are, so I really appreciate that.
All right.
Okay, tell us a little bit about your backstory, and then I want to hear more about the microbiome, and I know that's a core focus of your brain. So just tell us a little bit.
Yes. So for those of you that don't know me, my name's David Valenzuela. I founded a company called Wish in 2018. But I'll give you a little bit of the backstory, Brittany, as to how this actually came to be, because I'll give you the CNN Cliff Note version because I've been around for a minute. I started my career actually with Aveda. Back in the day when nobody knew what Aveda was. People call it Aveda and stuff. And it was like the first entry into the professional channel that was actually paying attention to estheticians, hairdressers, nail technicians, to the health of what technicians were working with all day. So anyone that's ever used an Aveda product, it's primarily known for hair care now. And we were all about essential oils and just a very holistic approach to hairdressing. But here's the funny story about my career with Aveda. This is before technology, Brittany. So there was no social media. We didn't have laptops. There was no email, which sounds archaic at this point. What? So we had to do in-person trainings, right? We would go to LA. I was in training for 3 weeks. I had to learn how to perm hair. We had to learn the lymphatic system. We had to learn how to give an Aveda massage. We're based in Palm Springs. So this is when my first territory was out here. And we had a lot of people that had Vichy showers. So I had to understand and learn how to do a Vichy shower treatment and what that meant. You were going to be soaking wet. We're wearing bathing suits and effleurage massage with a salt scrub. It was just, I had to learn how to do it. That was literally how we communicated the message of Aveda. So that was the first 10 years of my career. And it's a very interesting time, Brittany, because it was a lot of firsts for me. I was the youngest person to get promoted into a regional position. And at this point, through the decade, Aveda was acquired by Estee Lauder.
Okay.
And it was the first acquisition of Estee Lauder into the professional space. So it's very interesting. So through that tenure, I got to run a full service salon in Palo Alto, 48 service providers. That was it was pandemonium, whole nother podcast for that. But I did every position. Started in Southern California, moved to the Central Coast, ended up being in San Francisco, managing Washington, Oregon, Northern California, and Hawaii. Which is, it's a small world because now we have one of our original Aveda accounts back in early 2000s is now a significant Wish account in 2024 on Oahu. So it's a full spectrum moment. So then cut to my Dermalogica. It was called the business. What was it called back then? It's changed names. Oh my God, it'll come to me in a second. See, it's too early. My caffeine needs to kick in. So, there was it's called TSA. The Salon Association was hosting an event in San Francisco. Aveda was a big sponsor. So we're sitting there at this event. It was, it was Bumble and Bumble. Aveda was there. But the thing that was most fascinating was there were founders of brands. So I think his name is Michael Gordon, who founded Bumble and Bumble. There was Jane Werwan. She was the keynote speaker that closed out the presentation. And if you've ever seen Jane speak, she is dynamic, and it was just so crazy. So I'm looking at my coworkers. There was 4 of us in a row with Aveda saying, "You guys, that's why I'm in the industry." She was so inspiring, and she, it's still a private company at this point. So I made a couple phone calls. I was just asking questions, turned into an interview, turned into a job offer, and that became my transition into Dermalogica in 2005. I mean, I know, right? Wow. So 2005, that's what brought me from my first time moving from San Francisco to Atlanta, managed the Eastern Seaboard. At some point in my tenure with Aveda, I managed every nook and cranny of the United States, reorganizations, all of it. But I had always been so fascinated with skin, and being with Dermalogica, it was like, that's all we did.
Mhm.
We weren't doing makeup, we weren't doing hair care, we weren't doing perms, and like we did launch some body stuff over the time period, but it was focused. So that was 7 years. And then
Okay.
I got recruited by a little company, which I didn't know, Brittany, at this time, like anything about venture capital money, equity firms, any of that. But it was a company that actually funded Tesla.
Oh.
So I'm looking at their portfolio one day, like they flew in to interview me, these guys in suits. I had no idea what they were doing. I'm like, what is this? I've just been private company, don't know.
Yeah.
Um, and a couple weeks ago, I was watching a documentary about Elon Musk, and there was the CEO of that company who's really friends with Elon. And I was like, I didn't even know what I was getting involved with. SpaceX was in their portfolio. They owned a lot of restaurants in Utah, but they didn't have anything in the aesthetic space. So that was 5 years with a brand called Cosmetics. That's where Cosmetic. It's actually based in Atlanta. So my reformulating the products, repackaging the products, rebranding the products, hiring an entire sales and education team, managing global distribution, like I was in a suitcase, basically lived out of my suitcase for 5 years, but that was great. And then, as you know, my last role in the corporate world was for CEO as Face Reality.
Yes.
All things acne.
Yes. So then Wish came about.
Yes. Yes.
What came about?
So I'll tell you how it started. It was an idea way back in the day when I worked for Aveda, actually. I said, you know what, someday I'm going to own a skincare brand. And so you guys, when you're thinking about the progression of your careers and you're in a treatment room where you're listening to this, like, I want to get to X, just think about how long this actually, I had this moment. I had like a lucid dream that I was going to own a brand called Wish. So weird. I don't know. I wrote it down in my little, at the time, Franklin Covey day planner. 2018. So we started as consultancy. So I had to like wrap my head around what it's going to take. The misconception, Brittany, about what it actually costs to actually start a brand, formulate a brand, package a brand. Nobody truly understands it. And I'm not saying people shouldn't do it. I'm saying if you are going to do it, you really need to have a really thorough understanding of the timing that it takes to formulate a product from scratch, the contract manufacturing method, all of that.
All of it.
Because it's no small undertaking. But I just started helping estheticians, so I wasn't really sure. And I've been working, Brittany, since I was 12 years old. So I've always been like, I was the kingpin babysitter when I was a little kid. Everybody wanted me to babysit for them. I was very, very tall as a kid. I was just very mature and very independent. And like, that was just my jam. Yeah. So I really was like, I'm going to take some time off because I haven't really had any time off in my adult life. So 2018, 2019, I was doing a little consulting, helping people develop some products, which was percolating in the background. Mm-hmm. About mid 2018, I was like, need to start formulating, knowing that it's going to take this much time, back and forth, stability, compatibility. So then my first round of labels arrived the day that the world shut down from the pandemic.
Wow.
It was March 13th. I'll never forget it. All my labels have showed up. All my packaging is already rolled up. The semis have rolled up, like all of that. And I realized, you know what? I don't have any control over this. So I had the formulations we were working on. It was very, very slow. Labs had protocols. If somebody sneezed or somebody coughed during like the production, they would have to shut down the entire lab, and then everybody would have to be rapid COVID tested. So the production was just crazy. So I actually finished my degree during the pandemic.
Oh.
Totally random, right? Totally random. It was something that I wanted to do, and I had to like figure out how to catch like what was going to be, what am I going to focus on, because I don't have control over anything else. Yeah. So I finished my degree in business. I have a bachelor's of science degree in marketing, which was always fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And I just really wanted to get that done. So October 2020, cut back to the beginning of my career. I was in community college when the opportunity with Aveda came up. And so I had to drop out of community college to start my career with Aveda. Didn't know that was going to be a decade. Didn't know that, we don't know, right, what's going on. So I finished that. But as I'm going through the program, all universities had to ship to an electronic platform, right? Because no one was doing in-person learning. I'm looking at it and I'm going, you know what? Our industry, the aesthetic community, needs to have a space to be able to learn like this.
Mhm.
You're a mom, people are busy, they're doing treatments, they're running, everyone's got lives and dogs and kids and like things, life is crazy. And nobody has really the time now as a working adult to go sit in a brick and mortar location for multiple times per week. So if you need to flip your laptop open at 10:30 when your kids are asleep and like learn something, that's what I wanted to create. So I actually used a platform from the university to put our Wishes education onto it so that it would be user guided, go at your own pace, speed it up, slow it down, picks you up exactly where you left off, interactive quizzes, all the things that are learning. And I found out actually my learning style, I would actually go and do some pre-quiz stuff first
Okay.
and get an idea for what I was going to actually be required to learn.
Mhm.
And for me, everyone is different. Some people are visual learners, some people are audio learners. So you can read the captions if you want, you can listen to the audio if you want, like whatever's your best learning style. But
Okay.
I understood through that program that this was going to be something that the professional community needed.
Yeah.
And, it's an investment. I mean, Stanford uses it. A lot of really prestigious institutions use the platform. So it's
Okay.
like, all right, if it's good enough for them, then it's definitely good enough for the aesthetic community. So that actually turned into, so as I was coming out of Face Reality and looking at what was happening in dermatology, so you guys, the premise behind Wish Skin Health is microbiome health. And Brittany and I are gonna talk about this because it is very fascinating about what's happening. It is not a trend. It's not going away. It's part of the human body. Most people understand microbiome health. We've heard most about it through gut health, talking about having a healthy microbiome. And what we've learned, Brittany, and there's a lot of education around microbiome health in the industry today. I interviewed Katie Marshall with Acne MBK Detective. She's a very thorough program on gut health. And we understand, people understand the word inflammation now. They understand, a diversity in diet, but I don't think people really get that your topical microbiome, you have an ecosystem of bacteria, fungi, yeast. It sounds disgusting because you're like, wait, what? What? This is all living on my face and my hair and my nail. Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
But you guys, we went through this whole period of time for those that have been around for a while where we're like, oh my God, hand sanitizer. We have to clean everything, get the germs away. And the reality is that your immune system is built off exposure to bacteria and viruses. That's how you build a healthy, robust immune system.
Mhm.
There's been studies with kids about, keeping the environment super, super clean. Because I know you have a little one.
Yeah.
Preschools, elementary schools are like petri dishes because kids are licking and touching everything and they're always having a runny nose. You understand. So that exposure, I know. Well, and you know what? We were all sick too. Like I lived with my best friend when I first moved back to California. My little godson Chase is in Montessori, and I said we all had runny noses for like 5 years because what are you doing? So that is our exposure to that is what builds your immune system. And so that actually is giving you the ability to have a robust response to being exposed to bacteria, viruses, things like that. So the same thing can be said for our topical microbiome. So there's a couple things in this, and I'll explain it like as top level. Ask me whatever nerdy questions you want. I'll get into it. But your topical microbiome is directly related to your skin health. So what we know now, so there's been, we're 20 some years of research, but really the topical microbiome really started being studied in 2014 in the world of dermatology. And as I started researching it, I had a light bulb moment one day. I was like, oh my God, this is like, can I apply for Nobel Prize? I had the understanding of psoriasis, dermatitis, acne, eczema. These are all topical skin conditions that are directly related to microbiome health. So there's a whole host of things, as we know, whether it's medication, whether it's diet, whether it's stress, whether it's exposure to overstripping products or an extremely dry environment, heated, cooled. We're always in these controlled environments now, which are not great. Coming from 87% humidity in Georgia, my hair is already standing up if you're watching this on YouTube, my hair is already crazy and textured and standing up. I go back to Georgia. Guys, I lived in Georgia for a long time. I was like, woo! But you know what I noticed, Brittany, is my skin. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't look like a wrinkled hag in Georgia because there's so much moisture in the air.
Oh my skin hates Georgia.
Well, okay, so perfect example. So those.
So where's here?
There's so many factors. So when you're talking about, as an esthetician, you say, don't wash your face with extremely hot water, right? It's too much. You're exacerbating inflammation. All of the things, the water, the moisture content, your sun exposure, your diet, everybody's microbiome internally and externally are unique to them. It's literally as detailed as like your fingerprint. Wow. There is no one size fits all approach. So there are things we can do and there are ingredients that we can use. But what we understand now about the microbiome is that you have, we'll call it negative bacteria. So here is where it gets very, very interesting.
Okay.
C. acnes bacteria, the part of the ecosystem of your skin is C. acnes bacteria. For a long time, we call it P. acnes bacteria, which are shortened terms because people can't pronounce the words correctly, but it's C. acnes bacteria that we know now is what creates acne. Mm-hmm. Your C. acnes bacteria and staph bacteria are actually both keeping each other in check.
Okay.
So if you have an overproliferation of staph bacteria, it's overtaking the C. acnes bacteria and you can develop a staph infection.
Okay.
It flips the other way too. You can have a proliferation of C. acnes bacteria overtaking the staph bacteria, and you will then develop, if you're predisposed, you can develop acne.
Okay.
Or one of the other host of skin conditions. So the belief system that all bacteria is bad is actually not true. It's actually what's keeping your skin healthy. It's keeping a balance and keeping viruses and things that would affect you negatively away. So what we know now is that and you're going to see, it's just going to continue. It's not ever going to stop now that we have this understanding, different types of pre and probiotics that can be applied topically to really help the wellness of the skin overall. And it's really exciting, Brittany, because not only can you keep things, eczema, dermatitis, acne, all the conditions that are generally either medication, autoimmune, genetic, predisposed to some of these things, there's going to be a different treatment methodology for how we move forward with some of these things. Generally for people, you suffering from eczema yourself, steroid creams, things that suppress the immune system a little bit to say it's being overreactive. I think we're going to see a whole host of changes there. But the thing that people always pay attention to is that when your microbiome is healthy, you age slower. That's what everybody listens to. So forget that you cleared your acne or that your dermatitis went away or all that. It slows down the aging process. And whenever we talk about this on a podcast, YouTube, whatever, that's what people go back and listen to. Like, wait, what?
Wait, what?
I'm going to age slower. So so take it one step deeper now. So your microbiome is directly related to your barrier function. So when we talk about impaired barrier function, you are also impairing your microbiome function. You need a healthy, as we know, like 70+% of your cells in your body are water. But for your skin, topically, you need a healthy mix of both water and lipids to actually maintain healthy barrier function. And your microbiome is thriving off the sebum in the skin. So where we get into issues with acne, as we know, you're an acne expert, you get it, face reality trained, you understand. When the bacteria is trapped, so it gets down into the pore follicle and there's a sebum that traps it in there. This is what triggers an inflammatory response. The body says, this bacteria is not supposed to be here. So we know things like obviously proper exfoliation, chemical exfoliation, benzoyl peroxide treatment product, benzoyl peroxide, which we should talk about that too, because that just heated up a whole firestorm in the last couple of weeks. But oh my God. But basically, you guys, it's converting down into oxygen and delivering oxygen down into the follicle, which is then causing the inside of the pore follicle to shed. And then also that bacteria can't live in oxygen. So
Right.
it therefore mitigates the bacteria that's causing acne. Interesting thing, Brittany, that people don't necessarily understand is that people will say, and it's just education, right? They're like, oh, well, benzoyl peroxide is anti-inflammatory. And I'm like, well, actually, it's not.
Yeah.
It does produce a little inflammatory response. So you have to know how to prescribe it correctly. And when you are prescribing a BPO product to your customers, you guys, you need to also make sure that you're adding in a bunch of antioxidants. It depletes the skin of L-glutathione. I put L-glutathione in our vitamin C product to put those beneficial components back into the skin matrix to keep your microbiome healthy. So it is you have to know how to prescribe it correctly. You got to make sure that you're not over drying the skin. You're not stripping the skin. The idea is to maintain the health of the skin while the client is clearing. So that's kind of a top line CNN version of microbiome health. There literally is the testing, the collection methods, and how many actual bacteria on the skin keeps being debated, but it's probably in the billions. Like high numbers. Crazy. It's a crazy ecosystem.
So is microbiome the name for the ecosystem? Is that what that means?
Yes. Yep.
Use it, and I'm like, for a minute, David, I thought it was completely made up. I was like, this is just another fad of people saying, you know what I mean? Like, they make some terminology of something, and they're like, it's the microbiome, and now we have to do this. And I was just like, oh my gosh, again, you guys, stop paying attention to all these trends.
The shiny objects of the world. So the reason why, part of my exposure to the industry, Brittany, and I feel so, I don't even know, I was just going through life like on a magic carpet ride, but getting to work with founders of companies, I've been, so it's not all fairies and rainbows, and like, you know, there are moments as an entrepreneur, you have to make difficult decisions because you are in charge. It is your own money. Like you are your brand. But I think one of the takeaways that Raymond and Jane, the founders, husband and wife of Dermalogica, they were never interested in trends. And some of those things, because, you know, I was like, CE Ferula had taken off, you know, from SkinCeuticals, which is like, I don't know, almost $190 now for 1 ounce of vitamin C, L-ascorbic acid. Everybody knows it. You know, they filed for one of the first patents on stabilized vitamin C, and, you know, people lovingly refer to it as hot dog water, and all the YouTubers. And it's crazy because it is a very expensive product. We were challenging, like, we need to release a vitamin C product. So Ray and Jane sold the company in 2015. Unilever, I believe within 2 years of owning it, of course, launched a whole bunch of vitamin C products. You can't negate the fact that vitamin C is beneficial in skin, just like a retinoid or a vitamin A. Like the science is there, the data is there, the efficacy is there. So when I started looking at and I know all the trends, I know the stem cell trends and the epidermal growth factor, like I know all that, I've been around to see all of it. This is part of our body and our health, and it is a component of who every individual human being is. So we're not going to, like a year from now, like no one's going to be talking about the microbiome. Interesting thing. So as I'm researching this, and as I'm researching, you know, your gut health directly related to your overall well-being, we understand that there's more research now into your mental health, a lot of your immune system, a lot of your serotonin production. Everyone thinks everything's happening in the brain. It's actually happening in your gut. And so, you know, as you know, all the drugs and things that we prescribe or that get prescribed for acne, they're very disruptive to not only the microbiome in the gut, and it doesn't matter if it's antibiotic or isotretinoin, known as Accutane. These things are disrupting the health, not just the health of the gut and your microbiome in your gut, but also your total body, which ends up being topical. So things that are like these things, like, why do I want to support my microbiome? Well, your microbiome, like something like vitamin C, you guys, it never actually reaches the skin. Doesn't matter how much you ingest, the body uses it all for internal function. It never actually reaches the skin topically, which is why we apply vitamin C topically to boost the efficacy of our sunscreens, promote that collagen production, high antioxidant value. You have to apply that topically. You're never going to get that internally. So it's just things that support the microbiome. So the very interesting thing, Brittany, every time you wash your face, okay, or your body, your hair, anything, you're disrupting your microbiome. So there's some very interesting research that just actually came out fourth quarter of last year about ingredients that actually put the microbiome back into homeostasis the fastest. And one of those ingredients was high molecular weight hyaluronic acid, helping
Okay.
the skin snap back in. We know hyaluronic acid is a hero ingredient. We know there's multiple weights. I have a multiple
Yeah.
molecular weight vitamin C. It's called C21. Um, it actually puts the skin back in homeostasis the fastest. So when you're thinking about your
Mm.
home care routine, whether you're spraying a toner, like this is my, I can't not spray this all throughout the day because it's so dry here. You want to
Mhm.
keep that moisture in the skin. Antioxidants, obviously, high molecular weight hyaluronic acid, those are things that are going to get your microbiome back in health. And as you
Mm.
know from, practicing in San Diego, and you had more humidity there when you're treating acne, generally your acne clients are not interested in more moisture.
Right.
It's a little bit of a education, about training people like you're still going to need to use a moisturizer. We still need to use SPF. We don't want to overstrip your skin. We're going to cleanse gently. But
Right.
yeah, you are disturbing the microbiome through cleansing, through any kind of toner application, through chemical
So,
exfoliation, through BPO application. It is adjusting the microbiome. And the key thing as an esthetician when you're actually clearing acne to look at is where your client is at in the clearing process and understanding how to adjust your products accordingly so that you're not putting them. Acne is already an inflammatory skin condition. We don't want to add extra inflammation to the skin. And traditionally, without postgraduate education, people think we have to really dry the skin out because
right.
it does need oil to produce acne, right? Well, if you can balance, it's all about balance, bringing the
Mhm.
skin back to balance. If you can balance wherever your client is at, and I always say one size fits one because it's true. Like there are no two. Where you guys, skin is like your fingerprint. It's literally, it's your ecosystem, your microbiome, your internal. It's all individual. It's never going to be a one size fits all thing, which is why Proactiv, I think now that's been sold maybe 4 or 5 times, is not the answer. And women are the fastest growing onset of adult acne. And I'm
Mhm.
sorry, they don't need to be using Proactiv.
No. No, they do not. I mean, come on, we all had proactive horror stories. Some those of us who've had acne.
Yes. And those clients today, so remember it was a 3-step system, right? It was like scrub the crap out of the skin, alcohol-based toners, and then, a benzoyl peroxide application. And you're like, where's your moisturizer? Where's your SPF? And if you're listening to this and you see and you ask your client, tell me about all the products you use, and you've had a Proactive user from the 90s, they generally appear older. They blew their face up, they over exfoliated it, and they weren't using any SPF. And now, for all those people back in the day, SPFs were really at the elementary stage, and I get it, they were greasy. The raw materials that actually make SPF, they're generally greasy in nature.
Mhm.
So, we have our physical chemical blends of things, but back then, typically sunscreens were very oily and gross, and nobody with acne was like, I'm not putting that on my face. Absolutely not. So I understand it, but those days are over. And interesting story, Brittany. Proactive was actually, so the Katie and Kathy, the dermatologists that founded it,
Okay.
they sold it to Guthrie-Ranker, which was the infomercial company, which was actually
Okay.
based down the street from our offices. It was so weird. I drove by Guthrie-Ranker for years. And then it was sold again to Nestle, which everyone thinks is chocolate milk in the US. It's a huge company. Then it was sold to Galderma, which is the same company that owns a lot of injectables. And now it's
Okay.
been sold again.
Wow.
So, it's still a very well-known brand. They still
Yeah.
advertise. I still look at all their stuff, but we just have too much knowledge now about what's going on in skin. We have a better understanding of how to treat it more effectively. And it's old technology. Sorry,
Yeah.
Proactive.
Yeah, I mean, we all hate it. That's not anything new to the esthetician world. Okay, so I had a couple questions for you from what some of the things that you said. So essentially, you've already kind of said this, but I wanted to kind of help people for if maybe this is the first time hearing about microbiome, kind of after bringing around. So I think more and more, especially the acne community, people understand that barrier repair is super important, because if the barrier is
Yes.
not repaired, then nothing's gonna work. So that's essentially your repair the microbiome.
Correct. So your microbiome, in order to function correctly, has to have a healthy mix of lipids.
Okay.
So it's more so, I mean, you can use our cells are so much water that obviously we need a version of moisture. And that
Yeah.
is, moisture, we usually think of hydration as water, and we think of like moisturizers as like more oil or lipid based things. You need that healthy mix in order to have healthy barrier function for your microbiome to work. If the skin is too dry, so what I'm seeing, Brittany, is when a client over dries their acne kids, they're they are prone to more post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. The skin is not
Mm.
functioning healthy because the barrier is impaired, the microbiome is not working correctly, and you're more prone to PIH when you've over dried the skin when it's healing from an acne lesion. It takes longer. Those dark spots that show up, especially
Mm.
on higher Fitzpatrick types, if you've over dried the skin, you will notice that those take longer to go away because the skin has been impaired along the way. It can't heal itself correctly.
Wow. That makes complete sense.
It's huge. So I get to watch this on I call it the 30,000 foot view, because I've seen it in a global, there's things you can't do in Australia that we can do in the US, can't do in Canada, can't do in the US. Europe has different regulation. And I
Mhm.
see how people have treated acne on a global platform, and it just gives me all this information. But I'm also watching, our pros across the country send me pictures, help me with this case. What do you think's going on here? And 9 times out of 10, if somebody has been over dried through the clearing process, they can experience some PIH.
I used to, as a teen, I've always had acne as a teen and a young adult, and I always had, yay, warm or red after. I
Yeah,
didn't ever
PIE,
have like
yeah.
pigmentation, but I had just red marks that would just take a long time to get rid of. And of course, I was drying my skin out to try to get rid of the acne. I was very oily. I never would have put any oil back into my skin, right?
Yeah.
So it was the typical teen stuff.
Yeah.
One of the things that made me think of you were talking about probiotics in the skin, and made me think of one of my daughter's friends is having like a lot of severe eczema and rashes, and her mom's like, I want her to have probiotics in your skin, so I'm gonna do a yogurt bath. And I was like, that isn't a thing. But can you explain to I know, I was like, that's not how skin works. But how would you, if someone who's like, okay, I want to have probiotics in the skin, what does that look like from a product standpoint?
So there's a new ingredient technology. So I'll give you a couple things. So I'm not the trend person, and I'm not just because a raw material is introduced, I'm going to throw it into a product and start marketing it like this, because the raw materials, you guys, raw materials are all the ingredients that go into your specific products. They advertise and market to brands just like brands advertise and market to you. So they can make a lot of really crazy claims because it's not being sold directly to the consumer. So a lot of it gets into the gray area of changing cellular function and stuff, which is technically drugs, which they can all get away with because it's not being sold to a consumer. So you have to do your own diligent research. I look for efficacy and I look for some time. So things have to be on the market for a while and have some really good efficacy before we report them back and say this does this. So to
Right.
answer your question, there are ingredients. So my number one selling serum, the first product we introduced, it is lactobacillus ferment based. Okay. So there's a whole family of lactobacillus. There's lysate, there's different versions of it. We use a vegan version of it because I'm not using any animal derived ingredients. And what this does is it promotes the healthy bacteria on the skin. So keeping things in balance.
Right.
So this is like, if you think about taking a probiotic for your stomach, for your gut, you're basically you're putting healthy, or you're feeding healthy bacteria in the skin that helps with digestion. Things are going to ease the process through the gut. And digestion is another thing there's acne. Digestive enzymes can be helpful for gut health issues that also can help with your acne if you're not digesting your things correctly, or your body's in an inflamed state from foods that you're eating. Same thing for topical. So as we start including probiotics, prebiotics in topical skincare, you're just better supporting that ecosystem. So the skin can essentially function optimally and heal itself. It is a crazy concept, Brittany, because traditional Western medicine in the United States, we love to treat symptoms. We love to give spironolactone to women and say, oh, we got to mitigate your hormones. We need to take the androgens down, which is all directly related to oil production. And you're
Right.
like, what? We're doing all this stuff with hormones just so we can take oil production down? Like, small-minded, in my opinion. I know physicians come for me all the time. It's all right. Antibiotics. And I'm sure have seen the clients that come that have been on antibiotics for multiple years. You guys, you are not supposed to be on antibiotics for multiple years. It is not supposed to happen. We now have a prevalence of antibiotic resistance. You don't ever want to be in a position where you've consumed so many antibiotics in your life that you've built up an ecosystem that's now resistant to antibiotics, and you have an infection that won't clear because of your resistance. It's not okay. It's not okay. And I know that the world of dermatology, we have a prevalence of overprescription in the dermatology world in the US specifically for acne.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole nother podcast, but also the Accutane. So Accutane gets prescribed to take down the oil production. If you don't have oil in the skin, you can't have acne formation. But if you think of all of the body functions, your lubrication of your joints, the lubrication of your eyes, your entire body, your skin needs lipids to stay healthy. So when you're shutting off all that activity to take care of I understand, you guys, it's not, some people do need a medical therapeutic. If it's all the way down their middle, their back and their shoulders, you're going to need a medical therapeutic. But those are like less than 10% of the cases in the US. It's such a small amount.
Very rare.
The therapeutic gets thrown at it so much. You are disrupting your microbiome, not only externally, but also internally.
Right.
You have busted all of your microbiome function with one of those therapeutics. And so now we have information about gentle cleansing, probiotics, putting things back into the skin to make it healthy again. The, phytoactive clearing serum is actually, there's 21 actives in it.
Okay.
So there's a sebum regulator in it. There is a pigment suppressor in it, which is has a lot of data and efficacy behind it. But the lactobacillus ferment, in addition to promoting that healthy bacteria, calms inflammation in the skin, calms redness in the skin, calms down that redness that's just occurring from angry acne, inflamed skin, calms all of that back down. And when the skin is in its healthiest state, that's when the aging process slows down, which just happens to be a side effect of good treatments.
I mean, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to this a couple times because there's so much information. But it makes complete sense, especially for those of you who treat acne and you've seen it. The skin. Whenever I sell a skincare program to someone, I'm always like the actives. I'm like, this is like if we were going to the gym and working out really hard, and then the moisturizer, the hydrators, the SPM, like this is the water, this is the stretching. Like if you went to run a marathon and all you did was run and you never drank water, you never stretched, your legs would be so much pain. You couldn't do it sustainable. So it's the same. We understand that concept in other parts of our body, but the skin is where, I think the years of miseducation has really kind of been challenging.
It is. So the research it's never ending. You guys, anybody with a Google search, you can, look up information. I look at the American Academy of Dermatology frequently. I'm a subscriber to JAMA, which is the Journal of American Medicine. I look at cosmetics and toiletries. I don't like to take information. It is just a research point, and you having a better understanding of that will help you in your mindset for treating acne. And people are going to have breakthroughs, Brittany, when they listen to this, because they're going to be going, oh my God, that makes perfect sense. And they're going to go, well, wait a minute, should I not be using this? Should I not be using that? And there are some questionable ingredients that are available in the aesthetic space today.
Yeah.
And you guys, we love to do chemical exfoliation with our acne clients. And there's different ways to go about doing that. Your cells are shedding up to 5 times faster when you have acne. So you want to address the cell shedding. You want to address the bacteria. You want to address the oil production. You got to address all of those things in their totality and not just go crazy after we're just going to peel the crap out of the space. And that, by the way, is there's a researcher at Harvard. His name is David Sinclair. He talks about adversity mimetics.
Okay.
And it's a high science term, but essentially every time you're peeling the skin or you're throwing adversity at it so that it can come back and heal. A
Mm-hmm.
cold plunge, sitting in the sauna, long-term intermittent fasting, those are all considered adversity mimetics. And I'm
Okay.
studying that space and being very close to it
Okay.
because we know diet is, if you're going to have a crappy diet and eat a bunch of dairy and a bunch of sugar and stuff, you're going to trigger an insulin response. Guess what that triggers, you guys? More oil production. If you have acne, you're taking a bunch of inflammatory foods and you have an inflammatory skin condition, more inflammation, more acne. Like, it is not just I'm going to do a peel and I'm going to get the skin clear.
Right.
It's
No, it's
looking at
not.
the individual as a whole.
Yeah, and I think that is a generational thing too. Like people who are estheticians in the 90s, you would do the strongest chemical peel
Yeah.
out there. You wanted their skin to be coming off in sheets.
Yes.
It's a very gentle peel that, maybe they could go a little bit of roughness, a slight peeling, but it's not like they can't go outside for 3 days. That was
And
that.
we recommend, so with the way that we formulated our peels, that clients can come in as frequently as every 2 weeks
Yeah.
or 3 weeks. And then I have some practitioners downtown LA and they're like, David, you know how hard it is to drive around LA? Like, I gotta really treat the skin. I'm like, all right, you're gonna do some more peel passes on the skin. They've got a little bit more time to recover in between their treatments. Of course, yes, treat your clients where they're at, but you don't have to be over aggressive. If they can come in on a more frequent basis, a little
Right.
chemical exfoliation goes a long way.
It really does. And I have sensitive skin, I have eczema, so I can't do really strong stuff. And I found when I do the lighter stuff, it always responds so much better than a strong peel or whatever.
Interesting fact, Brittany, right now I was just reading this on the plane coming back from Atlanta. The world of dermatology has no actual definition for sensitive skin.
Really?
There's literally not a technical definition of sensitive skin. And they literally, a bunch of dermatologists got together and they were like all trying to pound it out about sensitive skin, and would not come to an agreement on
Really?
truly, even though that over 70% of consumers say, oh, I have sensitive skin.
Right. All right.
There's not a technical medical definition for what sensitive skin actually is. And we're sitting in 2024 going, what?
You're right. People overuse it. For sure.
They do.
People would always think that, oh, you have reactive skin. You put something in your skin, you break out or whatever.
And
Versus
you can
like, my skin
sensitize.
really.
Yes. Well, and the sensitized skin versus sensitive skin. Sensitized meaning you've
Right.
over cleansed, you've over exfoliated, you've sensitized your skin, versus having sensitive skin where everything you put on your skin, you might be reactive to it.
Yes.
They were trying to clarify just trying to come up with the definition so that people could come in. And then they were talking about when their clients come in and they're like, I can't use any of this, I can't use product. They would just put them in it. And I'm forgetting the term right now. You guys, it's early in the morning in California. But there's a term that they put them in that was basically like, it will come to me. It was something about the overusage of cosmetic product, but they just lumped everybody into that category.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, this is interesting that even in 2024, we don't have a actual definition for what sensitive skin is.
Wild. I also think I'm a highly sensitive person, so I think that just stems out on my everything. Everything is sensitive.
And you know what? The skin, you guys, it's gentle. We need to be gentle with our skin. It's like Katie says, it's a two-sided organ. It's protecting things from coming out as much as protecting things from coming in. And the more gentle and caring and respect that you can give your skin, the better it's going to treat you. And you're not, we remember the whole thing about sulfates when sulfates were all a big rage, like shampoos and stripping hair color. And, sulfates got this bad rap. And then Ordinary came out and they're like, we're launching a sulfate shampoo and sulfate. And the reality is, sulfates are not bad if you are formulating correctly. I don't use them. I don't use them because people are like weirded out about it. But when a product was formulated with a high surfactant matrix or a high percentage of sulfates, you have all these corneocytes, tight junctions, they're protein bonds in your skin, and sulfates basically dissolve them. So then you have a lot of transepidermal water loss. Your skin is like dry. And brands back in the day love to use sulfates because then people use more moisturizer as a means of selling more product. But having an understanding as to like why. Now, if you formulated a product with a very, very small percentage of sulfates, it'd probably be effective and okay. But sulfates as a whole, and it's going to be different for every skin type. But if you can avoid that and use, a whole host of really gentle surfactants, you're going to be better off.
Wow. Okay.
I know, you know what, we could geek out and nerd out on specific ingredients like gentle. That's the name of the game, you guys, gentle. And your acne, what I see, Brittany, also, the reason we use meter dose pumps, our airless pumps and things is that I know everybody, consumers, and especially acne clients, believe more is better. So you're like, you're going to take this, you're going to use 1 pump of this serum or 2 pumps of the serum. And they're like, oh no, 4 to 5 pumps. And, especially if someone's using a BPO or something, they think it's going to get rid of their acne faster. And they're just going to make their skin very angry. Slow and steady, slow and steady, slow and steady.
Right. 100%. Okay, we're almost out of time, but I wanted to ask you some random questions. Or I guess
yes.
You mentioned the stem cell. I've heard very mixed opinions. I'd love your take on topical stem cells.
Woo! This could get heated. Okay, you guys don't hate me because I don't want to. It's like telling people that there's no Santa Claus. So stem cells. Okay, so there's a couple different ways that this gets marketed weird. So you'll hear stem cells from plants. Okay, stem cells from plants. We've had this stem cell thing, and you know what, you guys? Honestly, in all the research I've done, stem cells from plants are providing. Maybe they have some calming attributes. Maybe they have some antioxidant attributes. But stem cells, only your stem cells, you personally, there is some research for some umbilical cord stuff for like when you have a baby, storing those stem cells, that those stem cells could be used for the injury of your child.
Yeah.
Or potentially. So I'm close to this because I have a friend that actually worked for the company that represented this, that sold this product to people giving birth.
Yeah.
They don't last forever. There's a very timeline, like about a decade, that people could use them. But this whole idea of topical stem cell application, anytime I look at these formulas, Brittany, I go, you're going to notice that there's usually peptides in the formulation as well. Okay. I think, not to call out brands, but Skin Medica was one of the first ones that came out with it. It was called Conditioned Media. And it was supposed to be stem cells from, they say they're synthesized in a lab, but they were originally derived from the foreskin of a penis. And they were put into this media, created this whole thing. Well, it created such a backlash that Australia said this product is not allowed in our country. Even though it's been synthesized in a lab, the origination of where it came from. So now I go and I look at that. You guys may be familiar with it if you're working in a Medi Spa, TNS serum. Go back and look at the ingredient deck and look at how many peptides are in that formula. And I can guarantee you that's what's doing the heavy lifting. It's got nothing to do with the conditioned media.
So I guess my question with the stem cells that I had heard from someone who did product development for a skincare line was that stem cells will help grow anything on your skin, whether it's skin cancer or healthy skin cells.
So there's debate. Yes. So the same thing could be said for if you have a precancerous lesion and you're using a retinoid, something that is causing cell proliferation, cells to grow quicker. Technically, that could be true for a cancerous lesion as well. You could accelerate the growth of that. The research is varying, Brittany, and because I know people are microneedling with these serums and these stem cell serums, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, no, my clients have a lot of healing attributes from this product. It really, really works." And I question some of the science. It's very interesting data that I'm not fully 100% behind. As advocating for. We have growth factor peptides, we have retinoids, we have things that actually have more efficacy data behind them for creating change in the skin, whether there's peptides that will stimulate oil production, there's peptides that will mitigate oil production, tyrosinase inhibitors that will inhibit that enzyme process for melanin melanin producing in the skin. You've got retinoids that are cell proliferation, getting the cells to multiply faster. So those things have a better efficacy record than some of the other stuff. So I'm not saying that there's not something that could exist that could possibly be. The research that I've seen today so far in 2024, I'm not fully behind it. I usually look at the deck and go, There's something else in there that's actually doing this function.
So you kind of just feel like the stem cell title on it is just more of a marketing term than it is that's really what's working.
I've watched some really intelligent people in the industry, some doctors with brands talk about their products, and the science behind what they're talking about makes sense, but not in the way that it's being applied.
What's wrong?
And you guys, this is all about education, right? So when you do just don't listen to me, go do your own research and look at it. The information for usually what is being explained to the aesthetic community is how stem cells function, but you're looking at, what kind of a clinical trial happened? Was it in vitro? Was it in a petri dish? Was it actually human skin? Were there 30 people? Were there 20 people that had a cosmetic appearance benefit? Once you start digging down on the science a little bit, Brittany, it starts to diffuse itself a little bit, and it's okay. You know what? I'm not here to say that any brand is better or worse than another brand. I'm just saying that we have access to research, and that's where I come to the table and I go, you know what? That doesn't make any sense. And I have some very intelligent people that I refer to and that I follow and that I study, and will ask a question to about it. And the stem cell thing it's a hot topic.
Well, I mean, I do appreciate your, as a business owner, as a founder of a skincare company, to be rooted in research, that you are looking at research first and foremost. And as the research changes, you'll make changes as well. You're not like, well, this is what sells. This is what
Right.
This sounds really cool. So this is what we're going to say, even though we know it's really, this is what's happening. We're going to go along with the trends. I think that itself is incredible. I love that.
And I thank you. I appreciate that. So the thing about our industry is that, as you know, 90+% of our industry is focused on quote unquote anti-aging. And I refuse to use the term. And I'm like, stop saying it, people. We're all aging. I know there's brands out there saying we can reverse age and age reversal. I'm like, stop saying that. We're all aging. So you can age slower. I call it intelligent aging or healthy aging. But the premise of our industry is really cosmeceutical and making healthy skin healthier or make it appear to be better. You know, we got a lot of silicones and primers. You're like, oh, my skin looks great. Well, you just basically applied a makeup product. But as you know, Brittany, you have firsthand knowledge. You can't play with acne. You cannot play with acne. You either produce products that get results and people buy them again and again and again. If somebody is not going to get results with their acne or it's not working for them, they're not buying that product again.
No,
versus the rest of the industry that's just trying to make pretty people prettier. There's a perception in that. Did I get a good night's sleep and I put that eye cream on the next morning? I'm like, oh my gosh, I look at you know the drill. So with acne, you have to do the research, and also being a professional brand and educating estheticians how to properly navigate this space. We're not just putting fluffy products out to the market. You actually have to do the research, got to do the work. You're going to hear more and more and more about the microbiome health. It is not going away. It's not a trend. Dermatology is going to talk about it. And for eczema, psoriasis, all these other skin conditions, mark my words, there's going to be therapeutics that come out that are going to be about supporting microbiome health. It's coming.
I cannot wait. I know. I first heard about microbiome from my friend Sarah, who's she is one of your clients. And I was like,
Sarah in Washington.
Yeah,
I love Sarah. Shout out to Sarah. Sarah was one of my very first course purchasers.
Was
very
she?
First.
She
was that week that we released it, and then our Beauty Business Summit, there was a hurricane that came through, so we were supposed to release it at that event. So she was very patient, and I was like, Sarah, listen, I'm going to love on you as much as I can, and I thank you so much. She was so patient, but yeah, Sarah, I love her.
Yes, Melody's her last name, Sarah Melody, and but she was telling me, and I was like, because we met in person, and I was like, Sarah, what is this? What are you talking about?
I know.
Glad to learn more about it, and not from a trend standpoint, but from like the name of the microbiome to now I know understand it is the name of what I already knew about. It just is the best way to describe the whole ecosystem is what we already inherently knew.
Yes.
What that was.
Yes. And it's everywhere on your body. It's not just your face. And there's different research because you have different things, different bacteria that live in different parts of the body. I know it sounds the crotch area, the armpit area, like there's different bacteria living, but like there's certain things that live on the upper half of your body that don't live like on your legs. It's very, very interesting. And it's, I believe from what I can gather from it's about sebaceous activity. And like, the palms of your hands are going to have like not a lot of sebaceous activity, just like your legs and your feet. So that would make sense why there's different bacteria on different areas of the body. But the idea is that we want to keep it in homeostasis, keep it healthy, and then we can keep a lot of skin conditions at bay.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And it's so interesting about the antibiotics because, of course, I grew up in the 90s where we got antibiotics all the time for everything, right? The doctors just gave it to us for everything.
Yes.
And I was recently, my daughter knew the doctor because she actually had pink eye. And we were at the doctor, they're looking at her ears and they're like, oh my gosh, she's an ear infection, which she wasn't complaining about. She wasn't like in pain. She wasn't putting her to sleep. And the doctor was like, we've changed our stance on antibiotics. We only give them if the child is physically in pain and really does need antibiotics. So she's like, I'll write you a prescription, but only get it if you feel like she really needs it. It will publicly notice, oh, you didn't even know it existed. And yes, we didn't get her that, if she's in pain, of course, we've given them to her. But, it was just such an interesting, she's like, yeah, we've learned how it can really wreak havoc on small children's bodies. And if they don't really need it, we don't want to give it to them. And it was the first doctor that told me that. Not that she's really been on antibiotics before, but it was such an interesting thing because normally, ear infection, antibiotics is like what you do no matter what, right? And so it was really refreshing actually to hear that from a doctor.
I love that because we have a better understanding of the immune system now, and everybody wants to look great. Our brand, we have literally our motto for our entire brand is confidence. It's confidence, restoring confidence for your clients and restoring confidence in estheticians, aesthetic providers on how to effectively treat acne. Confidence. One word. That's it.
I love it.
Simple.
Love it. That is wonderful. And I would say that it completely aligns with you and what you believe in. So I love that. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on and teaching us so much. And we'll listen back to edit it and I'll listen to it multiple times just to learn everything that you said. There's so many great nuggets in here.
I mean, so much information. And, we could have like a 3-hour like webinar about it. And I could be showing slides and like show the bacteria in the skin when you actually apply. But we got to have it in sound bites, right? You got to take a little bit of it. And, at the end of the day, everybody, you guys, I just encourage everybody. No one's really teaching in the aesthetic community about doing research. And I see people type in all these aesthetic forums, like they'll ask a question and I'm like, you know what? Don't ask for opinions.
Right.
Don't go in and ask for people's opinions. Go and actually spend 15 minutes. Everybody has access to a lot of information through the American Academy of Dermatology. Everybody can research the National Institute, the NIH, the National Institute for Health. Like you can go and find a lot of really cool information and get a couple articles on a certain topic. Don't just read one thing and be like, that's the law. Look for peer-reviewed information where multiple eyes have been on it. Multiple people have researched it. Read the 2 articles and then go, you know what? I now have an educated opinion about what this is based off the research that I've done. So that's all, it's just we're just making ourselves smarter every day.
Yeah, not research on a Facebook forum.
Exactly. And again, you know what? There are some very smart people. There are some smart people that have done the research and post the research, but that is not the norm.
And that's also not, they're not the authority of all. They know everything. So.
Right. So that's when, so if you ever see something or you see an esthetician post something or a brand post something or a doctor post something, it doesn't mean that you still can't go and do the research behind it. Like the research I was looking at about that whole hyaluronic acid debacle thing. And one of the articles was from 1954. I'm like, I can guarantee you that there's newer research and we're not just using low molecular weight hyaluronic acid as a singular use ingredient. It's usually blended with other things. Like, come on.
Yeah,
let's everybody calm down.
Your old research, okay? That's not what we use anymore. We're going to keep using it.
Exactly.
If
Exactly.
you're interested in David's brand and his skincare line, I will have all the information in the show notes in this episode, so you can click through and see if you want to be interested in looking at his products and being one of his pros. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful line that would help anyone's business beyond what we already currently know about acne.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. Trywish.com is the easiest way to find us. Super easy to remember. All the information's there.
Great. Thank you so much, David. Thank you for being here. Thanks for teaching us. I'll have to have you come back and teach more. It'll be a thing with David. What else is going to teach us today?
I will absolutely come back, and I'm excited you're coming on too for a Wish podcast coming up here next week. So I have actually 2 more recordings today, and I've got 2 on Monday and then you next Friday. So we're going to load up the deck again.
Here we go.
Here we go. So thank you for having me. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time and that you contribution to the acne community. It's super important and needed.
Thank you.